I really did not like the Shadow Temple in Ocarina of Time. Hello, my name is Yatha, and welcome to Yattakucha. And if you're watching this, you're probably a chronically online Zelda fan because, one, why would you watch some person yap on a YouTube channel with 20 subscribers about something they didn't like about a game that's really good? So it's like almost seems like anger. But yeah, the point of this is that I did not like the Shadow Temple in the Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. I recently beat it. It was my first time ever playing Ocarina of Time, and I will confirm it is a very good game. Everyone always says it's a very good game, and I will confirm that. It's like probably one of the best games I've ever played, in the running for my favorite game ever made prior to 2000, which that's a pretty important note of it's prior to 2000. Retro games are great if you're able to take them seriously. However, the second that you snap out of taking them seriously, then it's just like, what are we doing here? And I even think that kind of applies to Ocarina of Time a little bit. Now, how I play retro video games is when I typically play them on the emulator at the very least. I don't really have older hardware, so I always play retro video games through an emulator, either that be NSO or something on my computer. And what I usually do is I always try not to save state. I feel like save stating kind of ruins older games, and it just reminds you that these games are flawed instead of trying to just ignore it and play it for what it is despite its flaws. And it makes you compare the game to like modern experiences that you could play instead, especially if you're playing it on newer hardware emulated. Now, if you have like a CRT and an N64, that might be a different story, but I do not have access to that, and I do not have room to put it in my little place that I have, so that's not happening. However, the reason why I am able to stand by the fact that Ocarina of Time is a really good game is because I didn't ever really feel like I had to use save states, and I still managed to slowly like trek my way through the game in a way that was like respectful to the game itself. Like I was willing to go through the effort of trialing and erroring all the dungeons, even if I was already 3 hours into a dungeon in and of itself. I didn't want to look anything up, which I think Ocarina of Time does a really good job at guiding the player just enough, but not enough that it feels like it's holding your hand. I think that's actually a really, really good thing. So I never save stated or looked anything up for most of the time, and that's getting to the reason why I don't like the Shadow Temple. However, it's most of the time I was able to like respect the game, and that's the number one thing in my opinion that makes a game good, and especially applicable to retro video games that don't have modern features, is that if you're able to respect it. A lot of older games, you don't want to respect it, and you just want to be like, oh, I don't want to play this anymore. Let me just save state through this one jump. That's really annoying because this game was made for the rental market that made it overly hard on purpose or something along those lines, or like had some dumb life system that was from the arcades. Like a lot of systems that were in older games that make you don't want to respect it, and then a lot of its age starts to shine through a lot stronger, and you're not able to appreciate the game for what it is. Technically, the very first dungeon in the game that I save stated was the Water Temple. I actually really like the Water Temple. However, I did save state on one section in particular before the Shadow Link fight, and I just didn't. I kept dying to it because it was really hard, and I just save stated right before the fight began, so I didn't have to do the same puzzle over and over again. I thought that was fair. I don't really feel like I lost my respect for the Shadow Temple just because I did that. I think that was kind of a design flaw because the Shadow Link is just really hard and you have to do the same puzzle over and over and over again to get to him. However, I feel like I didn't lose my respect for the game past just that one little element. I don't feel like because I saved it in that one specific location, it like ripple affected to the rest of my experience. Which the reason why I don't like the Shadow Temple is because I had to save state, not even just save state. I actually didn't have to save state. It wasn't save state. I had to look stuff up. That was the main problem. I had to look stuff up to be able to experience the whole like know what the hell I'm doing. And for the record, like the Water Temple, there was like 2 minor places I save stated in just because of things I didn't want to keep retracking for. But I still, even like the switching boots thing, I still actually really liked the Water Temple. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was good. The Shadow Temple, I can't say that for, and the reason why is because, so I'll just take you through my chronological experience of why I did not like the Shadow Temple. It starts off with like this, you walk into Kakariko Village, and there's like this shadow thing harassing the well, and then like there's a fire, and it's the whole cinematic movie in 98. I don't know. Anyways, something happens, and then Sheik was like, okay, there's a thing in the Shadow Temple, and you need to go get it. It's behind the graveyard. Have fun. And then she goes away, and then you play a melody. I really like the Sheikah, like, thing. Everything to do with the Sheikah in this game. I think that was really well done. However, that's beside the point. I need to hate. I don't need to praise. I'm praising the game too much right now. But I went to the Shadow Temple. I'm like, okay, I saw this thing come out of the well, and like when I came, my first parts in the Shadow Temple, it was referencing you need the eyes of truth, and I'm like, what is that supposed to mean? I don't know. I'm the type of person that just kind of like I just want to keep going with what I'm doing. I don't like side quests really. I never really do them in video games. I rarely 100% video games actually. So like that's kind of representative of who I am. I'm like one task at a time, specifically for video games. So when I went into the Shadow Temple, like something true, and I'm like, what are you yapping about? I thought it was just some like atmospheric effect. Again, I went into this game blind. I didn't want to look anything up. I didn't want to ruin my experience by looking stuff up that would end up altering my thoughts on the game because I wanted to respect it. I wanted to play it like you would in the 90s. I mean, I guess maybe if I really wanted to play it like you would in the 90s, maybe I needed like a strategy guide and I'd look at that or something, but I feel like Ocarina of Time actually did a really good job at not necessarily needing a strategy guide. So up to this point, I kind of trusted the game at like, okay, I'm able to go into this dungeon. Up to this point, you would go into a dungeon and you can complete it by time you entered the dungeon. So I went into the Shadow Temple and I'm like, okay, is yapping about some Eyes of Truth thing. It's probably just some mysterious thing that I don't need. Let me just continue. And I just brute forced my way through the entire thing. Well, not the entire thing because I'll get to that, but the entire thing up to that point because like there's this first room where there's like a bunch of skulls on the wall, and I just kept on walking into each wall until I found like the right room that it was, and then there was like this like hand thing that really scared me. I do think some parts of the Shadow Temple's atmosphere is done really well. I do think that Shadow Temple's overall atmosphere is done really well, as just this one part that I did not understand. I didn't understand that you needed to go to the well to get this lens of truth to be able to like do the puzzle that is the Shadow Temple. That is what my gripes with the whole thing in a TLDR is. So I still didn't have the lens of truth. I just brute forced my way to get the hover boots. I managed to figure it out, and then I think it's called the leap of faith or something. I don't know, the jump of faith. And I got over and then got to the second layer, and I got to the bottom, and then like there's this one big chamber. I kept on like screwing up with the skulltulas, or not the skulltulas, the skull guides. Skulltulas are like the collectible things. The skull guy, you know what I'm talking about. And like every time I died in like that main labyrinth room that would connect to the leap of faith, I would end up having to restart at the beginning, which already that made me kind of want to save state a little bit because I hate redoing the same thing over again. But at the same time, I'm like, okay, it's fine. I'll respect the game. I don't want to like ruin the game and just be like, actually, no, I'm right, which is the problem with save stating. So I just I stayed my way through it. And I kept like not knowing what to do because I would go to this one side room with like I think it was the one where the sign that says you need a stone umbrella. Like, thanks. Yeah, I packed that today. And I'm like, something, and then it said something again about the Eyes of Truth. I'm like, yeah, sure. I definitely don't know what you're talking about. So I'm like, okay, I just assumed it was atmospheric things. It's like, it's the Shadow Temple. It's supposed to be spooky. There's like something that's going to be revealed. I was like, okay, maybe I'll get the item in the Shadow Temple. And then I'm like, what in the world are you supposed to do in this room? I had no idea. I kept doing I spent a solid like 30 minutes to an hour just messing around in that room. And then as well with the other room on the other side of that main labyrinth room. And then you would go into this room where if you lose the lens of truth, there would be like little swords spinning in a circle and you could see it. And there were some enemies you had to get. I don't even think you have to go in that room if you're not 100% in the game, but that's beside the point. But I was so confused when I first entered that room because I thought there was like poison gas, and I died in the room because I'm like, I don't understand what's going on. But then eventually I figured out, okay, there's like an invisible clone of this scythe little thing that I actually did before, and I was like, okay, it's just like trying to spook me out. I thought like that's a puzzle that's a little weird to figure out, but I figured it out. I figured out there was an invisible thing that I had to dodge. I did not figure out that you could look at it with something that you need to go into the well for an item to fetch that you can then use to look at it. I did not figure out that part. I figured out that there was a ghost there. I mean, I thought it was poison gas for a little bit there. But I figured I got that room done, and but then the fact that there's like this other room with a key and you needed a key to get somewhere, I was like, okay, what how do I get into this big gap? I've actually managed to figure out how to get to the door by just brute forcing. Again, I'm the type of person who will brute force it because I thought this is what I'm supposed to do. And I started getting really annoyed because I didn't fully understand everything that was going on. And I'm getting this far. So clearly I'm like, I guess this temple's just really freaking hard. I don't know. So I managed to like figure something out, and I got to the door, I got to the other rooms without ever using the lens of truth. And eventually, this is the point where I just got stuck, because in order to get the key to open up to the next area, you needed this like, push this invisible rock, or like boulder, not rock, like stone block cube thing. And eventually, I did not manage to brute force that part. And this is where I had to look it up, and I felt like I was like breaking myself, because up to this point, I really loved the game, and I went completely successfully without ever looking anything up. And I felt like really proud of myself for that reason, and I felt like I was able to respect the game for that reason, and like not really feel like this is a game from 1998. I feel like this is a game I'm playing today. I thought the graphics were actually really good. For an N64 game, the graphics on this game are actually really good. Like, I didn't feel like I was playing an N64 game, partially because the graphics are good, but also because I was able to respect it. That's the main point. The Shadow Temple lost my respect, and I got really annoyed, and that's why I don't like the Shadow Temple, because eventually I broke my seal, and I just looked it up. I'm like, what the hell am I supposed to do? And then I figured out that you had to go outside and go into, like, travel back in time as a kid and go into the well, or like the bottom of the well, play like the song, and this is where I got stuck. I actually even got and figured out that, like, okay, I'm gonna have to go outside of this temple. I figured that part out. I'm like, there's definitely something that's screwing around. I figured that part out. I even figured out that you needed to go back in time. However, I screwed around in Gakuruka Village for a pretty good bit, doing like random side things. Eventually, I did some side quests and like got some heart pieces, I think. And I even learned the Song of Storms as well. I got that piece. I got that part. Like learning the Song of Storms, and like through the windmill. But I did not connect that you needed to go and go inside the windmill again and play it in front of the guy so that the windmill would spin around and then drain the well. That part does not make any sense to me. I guess if you put me in a room with this game, I eventually would have gotten that, but it would have been by brute forcing, because I'm like, oh, I guess this is a room I technically did not enter as a kid. Even though I entered it as an adult, so I'm like, maybe it's the same. I don't know. Logically, maybe I'm just like a suburban white person that doesn't understand how like agriculture works, but to my understanding, I did not connect how you could drain a well by making a windmill turn. That doesn't make any sense to me. I did not like that puzzle, and it was the single reason why I did not like the Shadow Temple, and it eventually got to the bottom of the well, and I'm just like, oh, whatever. And by the time I got there, I'm like, I'm just done. And I just brute forced my way. I mean, I don't think I save stated at the bottom of the well or anything, or like even looked anything up or anything like that. But I just like, let me just get the key, get this over with, or not get the key, get the lens of truth. I got the lens of truth, and I went inside of the Shadow Temple back again. And the rest of my time there was just like, it's just a fine temple. I mean, I wasn't able to put myself in the atmosphere. I was just like, I'm just playing an old ass game from like 1998 that's apparently good, and I'm just stemming in annoyance. And it got to the point by like the very end of the temple with like the ship that would go out. I didn't understand that you have to blow up the bombs with the arrows. I guess I didn't disconnect that. I feel like by this point I probably could have figured that out, but I was just annoyed at this point, so I didn't want to figure it out, to like cross the river or canal or whatever. And I had to look that up too, which increased my annoyance. And then by the time I got to the boss battle, I was just like, screw it. I just save stated my way and beat the thing. I definitely could have beaten it legit. Don't get me wrong. I was just tired, and I lost my respect for the game. And that definitely, like, the reason why I'm really, like, if you're just like, oh, that's just one little thing, I mean, why are you making a whole YouTube video about this, I guess. It's because it carried on this feeling of, like, lack of respect into the Spirit Temple and even the end of the game. I feel like this game deserves a replay from me. I have the 3DS version. I wanted to play the N64 version, emulated, granted, but the N64 version just for footage, because I wanted to get footage for some stuff. Eventually, like, yeah, I did beat the game. It's a good game. I was happy I beat it, but I didn't like. I was like, this is the greatest game of all time. Oh my god, like, I didn't get like that, and I'm sad that I lost the respect in the way that I did. because I didn't understand the puzzle. I mean, I do kind of blame it on the game. I managed to figure out that you had to shoot the arrows in the forest temple with your bow. I also never got the fire arrows. I managed to beat the game without ever getting fire arrows. There's a couple points in Ganon's tower that's really difficult, but whatever. So it's like, just because, but by the time I like got past the shadow temple, I'm like, oh, I can just look stuff up. This is just a game I'm playing from 1998 that I'm playing just because I'm a big Nintendo fan and I think this game is important. So now I can just look stuff up, and now it ruined the experience for me. That is why I do not like the Shadow Temple. It is my least favorite temple in the game. I'd say my favorite is Forest, if you want to ask that question. I loved Forest. I feel like it was like really challenging for me, but not like so challenging I had to look stuff up. I feel like I've heard online that there's some complaints about the key in the first room, that's screwing up a lot of people. I actually got that key before I even entered the freaking dungeon itself, so that did not affect me at all. I love the Forest Temple. The Forest Temple was like the peak of the game for me, in my opinion. But, you know, thanks for listening to YouTube Slop. Bye.